Boker Tov, how wonderful it is to be together. And I want to thank Rabbi Hannah especially for her Dvar Torah last night and how it is that we are here, we've been sustained, and we are grateful. Please sing with me, Moda Ani. Moda ani lefanecha, Roch Chai v'kayam. Moda ani lefanecha, Roch Chai v'kayam. Shechechet bi nishmati b'chem la Rabba emunatecha, emunatecha. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai 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 dai 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 dai. And a poem of mine, Salach, forgiveness. The irony of this poem is that I am exhausted by words. Slavish, ephemeral sounds carried over ether, etched nowhere, not even upon the heart. Swaddled in my talus amid the shofar's 100 birthing cries, prone I lay, breathing the scent of the soil, the ancestors. Adamah washes away a mouthful of summer-fallowed words. What I have come to crave is the solid. With soiled hands of an earthly potter, I sweep away flaked remnants of hope that the utterances alone are powerful enough for human creation. My hands shall deliver a vessel of clay, a seal fused with the power of Esh, consecration branded into its body, Salach. On these cool autumn days, as Ruach once whispered Rachamim above a landscape of chaos, I, in kind, exhale depleted letters of a departed vision, calmly watching them drift, settle, and come to rest. Elohai Neshama on page 60 in your Matzor. Elohai Neshama Shenatata bi Tehorahi. 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 Elohai, my God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it. You shaped it into my very own soul. You breathed it into me. You watch over it within me. One day you will take it from me to return it to its source, to return it in time to come. So long as my soul remains within me, I will offer my praise to you, Adonai, my God, and the God of my ancestors, creator of all living beings, guardian of all souls. Baruch atah Adonai, hamechei neshamot b'kol yom. And from Psalm 27, Achat Sha'alti. It's on page 74, fourth line from the top in your Matzor. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol mechaya la'azot beinoam Adonai ulevaker bechalo la'azot beinoam Adonai ulevaker bechalo. And Karov Adonai on page 84 in your Matzor, third line from the top. Karov Adonai lechol korav lechol asher lichrachu ve'emet. Karov Adonai lechol korav lechol asher lichrachu ve'emet. Hayom da-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, do. Hayom da-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, ya-dee-dai, do. Hayom da-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, do. Hayom da-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, ya-dee-dai, do. Karov Adonai lechol korav lechol asher lichrachu ve'emet. Karov Adonai lechol korav lechol asher lichrachu ve'emet. Hayom da-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, do. Hayom da-da-dee-dai, ya-da-dee-dai, ya-dee-dai, do. Hi-om da-da-dee-di, dee-di, 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 do. Hi-om da-da-dee-di, yi-da-dee-di, yi-dee-di, do. And Psalm 148. It's on page 85 in your Matzor, second paragraph. And with gratitude, we thank the peoples of this land who held it sacred, who protected it for over 10,000 years. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah, Adonai mim hashemayim, Hallelujah bamromim, Hallelujah kol me'achav, Hallelujah kol sevav, Hallelujah shemesh ve'areach, Hallelujah kol keveor, Hallelujah shemei hashemayim ve'hamayim, Asher me'al hashamayim. Ya Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nirahu, ve'ya'amidem le'ad le'olam, hoch natan ve'lo yavor. Ya Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nirahu, ve'ya'amidem le'ad le'olam, hoch natan ve'lo yavor. Hallelujah, Adonai mim hashemayim, Hallelujah bamromim, Hallelujah kol me'achav, Hallelujah kol sevav, Hallelujah shemesh ve'areach, Hallelujah kol keveor, Hallelujah shemei hashemayim ve'hamayim, Asher me'al hashamayim. Ya Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nirahu, ve'ya'amidem le'ad le'olam, hoch natan ve'lo yavor. Ya Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nirahu, ve'ya'amidem le'ad le'olam, hoch natan ve'lo yavor. Hallelujah, Adonai mim hashemayim, Hallelujah bamromim, Hallelujah kol me'achav, Hallelujah kol sevav, Hallelujah shemesh ve'areach, Hallelujah kol keveor, Hallelujah shemei hashemayim ve'hamayim, Asher me'al hashamayim. Ya Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nirahu, ve'ya'amidem le'ad le'olam, hoch natan ve'lo yavor. Ya Hallelujah et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nirahu, ve'ya'amidem le'ad le'olam, hoch natan ve'lo yavor. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Instructions for the Journey by Pat Schneider. The self you leave behind is only a skin you have outgrown. Don't grieve for it. Look to the wet, raw, unfinished self, the one you are becoming. The world too sheds its skin, politicians, cataclysms, ordinary days. It's easy to lose this tenderly unfolding moment. Look for it, as if it were the first green blade after a long winter. Listen for it, as if it were the first clear note in a place where dawn is heralded by bells. And if all that fails, wash your own dishes, rinse them, stand in your kitchen at your sink, let the cold water run between your fingers, feel it. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel your way. The way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel your way. The way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. Ooh. Gamar town. Good fast, and may you be sealed in the book of life.
Page 106.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נאווה תהילה. בפי ישרים תתרומם, ובדברי צדיקים תתבורך, ובלשון חסידים תתקדש, ובקרב קדושים תתהלל.
Page 108.
Ay, 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 ay,
Please rise.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hapoteach lanu sharei rachamim, umeir einei hamchakim leslichato. Yotzer or uvorei choshech, osei shalom, uvorei et hakol. God spoke, and there was light. Out of the darkness, life-giving treasure, eternal light.
Please be seated. Page 110. Line 5 of the Hebrew to the left. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. El Baruch Gedol Deha. הכינו פעל זהרי חמה, טוב יצר כבוד לשמו, מאורות נתן סביבות עוזו, פינות צבאיו קדושים, רוממי שדי. תמיד מספרים כבוד אל וקדושתו. יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Page 116. Ahava, Rachamim, Chesed, Shalom.
Love, compassion, kindness, peace.
Ahava, Rachamim, Chesed, Shalom. Ahava, Rachamim, Chesed, Shalom. Shalom, ahava, rachamim, chesed, v'shalom, ahava, rachamim, chesed, shalom, ahava, rachamim, chesed, shalom.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol v'chavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al livavecha Veshinantam livanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'leftecha avaderech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam lehot al yodecha v'hayu letotofot beineinecha Taftam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Adonai Elohechem emet.
Some words. I have a friend who teaches spirituality through music. And at the beginning of every workshop, he leads people through an affirmation. And he says, repeat after me, and you can do it if you trust me. I am ready.
I am ready
to face the truth.
To face the truth.
About myself.
About myself.
No matter how beautiful.
No matter how beautiful.
This seems completely normal to my friend. This is just his outlook on life. But I know how I feel when I see something beautiful. Let's say a hibiscus flower. It's like a sense of peace rushes in. And suddenly, I am positive that this little part of the world is perfect. And that in this moment, maybe the whole world could be perfect too. And this is not how I feel when I see myself. But I could use a little balance, so I want to try on my friend's perspective for today. Just briefly, as an experiment during the Amidah. And you know how the first 3 blessings of the Amidah work. There you are, knocking at the gates of heaven. And you say the first blessing, God, you knew my ancestors. And then you say the second blessing, God, you work miracles. And then, boom, the gates open, and you're in front of the heavenly throne. What do you see? Our prophets say, you see something awesome. Our poets say, you see something beautiful. And you could say the same thing a little differently. The Amidah begins, and there you are, knocking at the gates of your soul. You say the first blessing, and you reflect on the past. You say the second blessing, and you share your hopes for the future. And then suddenly, boom, you're in the empty space between two time zones, the mystical space of Yom Kippur. What do you see? Maybe it's something beautiful. Page 122.
Ay, ay, ay. Mi chamocha v'Elohim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele, shira chadasha, shibchu gehulim, leshimcha, sefat hayam, yachad kulam, Hodu v'chim lichu ve'amru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Ay, ay, ay Tzur Yisrael Kuma ve'ezrat Yisrael, ufdechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai tzavot shemo, Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
We'll do the Amidah together. Page 440. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham v'Sarah, Elohei Yitzchak v'Rivka, Elohei Yaakov Rachel v'Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevii Goel Livnei Vneihem, Leman Shmo B'Yahava, Misod Chachamim Unvonim, ומלמד דעת מבינים, הבטחה פי בתפילה ובתחנונים, לכלות ולחנן פני מלך מלא רחמים, מוחל וסולח לעוונים. O pure vision, greatly exalted, teach me to pray with understanding, that I may help bring comfort to those whose prayer I bring to you. Page 442. Ay, 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 זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך, אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה.
Amen.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה, רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עופר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי תומך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. איי איי איי, מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים. בנאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
Amen.
With the ark open, the supplement, page 13. האדרת והאמונה,
לחי עולמים,
הבינה והברכה,
לחי עולמים,
הגאווה והגדולה,
לחי עולמים,
הדעה והדיבור,
לחי עולמים. Ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la ya la ya la la.
ההוד וההדר,
לחי עולמים,
הוועד והוותיקות,
לחי עולמים,
הסוך והזוכר,
לחי עולמים,
החילה והחוסן,
לחי עולמים.
יאללה
la ya la la ya la ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la ya la 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 la.
התכס והטוהר,
לחי עולמים,
הייחוד והיראה,
לחי עולמים,
הכתר והכבוד,
לחי עולמים,
הלקח והליבוב,
לחי עולמים.
יא לה לה, יא
yalla la, yalla yalla la la la, yalla la, yalla la, yalla 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 la.
המלוכה והממשלה,
לך עולמים,
הנויה והנצח,
לך עולמים,
הסיגוי והשגב,
לך עולמים,
העוז והענווה,
לך עולמים.
יאללה,
יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה,
הפדות והפאר,
לך עולמים,
הצבי והצדק,
לך עולמים,
הקריאה והקדושה,
לך עולמים,
הארון והרוממות,
לך עולמים.
יאללה,
יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה,
השיר והשבח,
לך עולמים,
התהילה והתפארת,
לך עולמים,
השיר והשבח,
לך עולמים,
התהילה והתפארת,
לך עולמים.
יאללה,
יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה, יאללה,
Page 446. ובכן לך תעלה קדושה, כי אתה אלוהינו מלך מלכי וסולח. As celestial choirs sing of the holiness of your name, so do we do the same. As angels in your court ask where and how to make your name known, so do we ask to be shown. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch ol haaretz kevodo.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melok kol haaretz kevodo.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch ol haaretz kevodo.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melok kol haaretz kevodo.
Aye,
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 aye, mekom kevodecha. Aye,
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 mekom kevodecha. Sholim ze laze,
Aye.
Sholim zelazet.
Aye.
Sholim zelazet.
Aye.
Sholim zelazet.
Aye.
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 Aye. Mekom kevodecha. Aye.
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 Aye. Mekom kevodecha. Baruch atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh.
Amen.
Please be seated. Page 451. Whom can I accuse? Of whom revenge demand? When I've borne deep suffering at my own hand.
Other hearts have held hatred for me, but my own heart hates me more than anyone knows.
My body bears the wounds of relentless foes, but none can match my self-inflicted wounds.
I have been seduced for my destruction, but none have lured me more than my own eyes.
I have been burned by countless fires, but none compare to the heat of my desires.
In traps I've been ensnared by old and young, but none have trapped me better than my own tongue.
Bandits have pursued me fast and fleet, but none pursue me faster than my own feet.
Pain overwhelms me, but no pain more than my rebellion. Anguish increases, but never faster than transgression.
Whom can I blame? How can I function when I am the source of my own destruction?
I seek shelter for my soul, which you alone did fashion, for you, our God and King, are enthroned upon compassion.
In the supplement, page 12.
Bring me back, and I will come back. Accept me, compassionate one. This is your part. Hashiveni ve'ashuva v'tirtzet teshuvati lecha eli tashukoti Bacho chasheki wahavoti
Ashiveni vashuva vatirtzahet teshuvati
Hashiveni washuva watirsoat tashuvoti lachalibi wachiliotai lachol ruchi Anishmoti
Ashiveni vashuva vatirza et shuvati
Ashiveni washuva Vatirsoat tashuvoti Lacho azak bako adbak adeshuvi leadmoti
Ashiveni vashuva vatirza et shuvati
Ashiveni washuva Vatirsoat tashuvoti. Please rise.
Page 452 at the bottom.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, Erech Apayim, Verav Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon Va'fesha, Vechatat Venakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, Erech Apayim, Verav Chesed Ve'emet, Noser Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon Va'fesha Vechatat Venakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, Erech Apayim, Verav Chesed Ve'emet, Noser Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon Va'fesha Vechatat Venakeh.
Ve'salachta lavonenu l'chatoteinu unchaltanu. Hanisham alach ve'haguf alach chusa chusa alam alach Hanisham alach ve'haguf alach chusa chusa alam alach Hanisham alach ve'haguf alach chusa Have mercy on us. Have compassion for us. Have pity on us, because we are part of you. Page 458. Ki anu amecha v'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha v'ata avinu, ay ay ay, anu avadecha v'ata Adonenu, anu kahalecha v'ata chelkeinu, ay ay ay, anu nachlatecha v'ata goraleinu, anu tzonecha v'ata roheinu, ay ay ay, anu charmecha v'ata notreinu, anu feulatecha v'ata yotzreinu, ay ay ay, anu rayatecha v'ata dodeinu, anu segulatecha v'ata kroveinu, ay ay ay, anu amecha v'ata malkeinu, anu mamirecha v'ata mamireinu, ay ay ay, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay. Ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay, ay ay ay, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay. Page 460. Ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay. Ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, dibarnu dofi. Ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Havinu, vehirshanu, zadnu, chamasnu, tafalnu shaker. Ay, 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 ay. Yatznu ra, kizavnu, Latznu, maradnu, neatnu, sararnu, avinu, pashanu, sarharnu, kishinhu horeh. Ay, 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 ay. Rashanu, shichatnu, Tiavnu, tahinu, titanu. Ay, 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 ay. Page 463, on the left, toward the bottom. You know the mysteries of the universe, the secrets of everyone alive. You probe our innermost depths. You examine our thoughts and desires. Nothing escapes you, nothing is hidden from you. Bless us with peace. Page 470, middle of the page. Ay, 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 Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Baruchenu b'bracha hameshuleshet, B'torah haktuva al yedei Moshe avdecha, Hamura mipi Aharon uvanav, Kohanim, Am Kedoshecha kamur.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Ken yirahi ratzon.
Yaher Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
Ken yirahi ratzon.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
Ken yehi ratzon. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom.
Amen.
Page 472, toward the bottom. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of happiness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of deliverance.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chagela.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of prosperity.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu b'sefer zchuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of merit.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of forgiveness.
474.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Chanenu
Chanenu Vaneinu.
Avinu Malkeinu,
Chanenu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim.
Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Missed that. You
Page
all
4.
made me cry.
Page 474.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei ve'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael u'v'ala u'izman kariv ve'imeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam me'almei almaya almaya. Yitborach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'yitale ve'yitalal shemei dekudesh abri le'ela le'ela mikol bechata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechemata damiran be'alma ve'imaru amen. Titkabel slotachon uva'utchon dechol Beit Yisrael kadam avuhon divishmaya ve'imaru
Amen.
Yehesh lama rabba min shemaya ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru Ose shalom bimromav Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru amen.
Bruchim tihiu.
Shikoach to Tiferet Welch for bringing us in so sweetly, beautifully, deeply this morning. We turn to the Torah service. Please rise. Page 480. Eina kamocha ve'Elohim Adonai v'yeina kema'asecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha v'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Adonai oz la'amo yitein Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Vayehi bin soa Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Kuma kuma, Adonai v'yafutzu oivecha, v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udvar Adonai mirushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kdushato. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech Apayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha v'Chatat v'Nakei. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech Apayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha v'Chatat v'Nakei. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech Apayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha v'Chatat v'Nakei. Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai, et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha, aneni, aneni, be'emet yishecha. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah Shemo. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Who has the first Torah? Can you take it back? Ashika. Yes. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Let's remain standing to see the columns of Torah. We're going to read today our first Hagbah in, I don't know how long. Na la'amod lahagbiyah et ha-Torah. Vizot ha-Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei v'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. We can be seated. This morning's readings, 6 aliyot from our first Torah, elaborate the high priest's Yom Kippur rituals centered on cleansing the innermost sanctum of the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies, where God dwelt amongst the people and from where there was potential for God to communicate. Later in our Musaf service, we act out midrash on these rituals of purification, wherein the high priest's Yom Kippur prayers are intermingled with the rituals of animal sacrifice and anointment of the space. Some of you have asked me, why do we read this in our time? We're not a sacrificing cult. My answer is so that we remember the importance of creating and maintaining sanctuaries for spirit, and to acknowledge our timeless capacity to create containers in space and in time to house and hold the sacred, to dedicate a place for the sacred in our lives, safe haven for our indwelling God, Shekhinah, whose name means the one who dwells, lives in our Shechunah, our earthly neighborhood. Aaron consecrates the sanctum to activate its holiness. He and the Israelites of his time believed that if the sanctuary were to be defiled, God would withdraw from dwelling amongst the people. Today, we read of the detail which he adheres to, using the vehicles available to him: incense, smoke, animal blood. We can think of it as a great smudging. With the destruction of the temples and the evolution of Judaism to prayer-based communication with God, this observance disappeared. Atonement became the theme for Yom Kippur, replacing the centrality of purifying physical space. In Judaism's post-temple paradigm, the sanctuary for God's indwelling, came to be within us. And it is the internal sanctuary that we now endeavor to purify and restore each year, so that we ourselves are a more hospitable home to God. Instead of a designated priest sprinkling blood and burning incense, laying our sins on the head of a goat, we have evolved a holy day of introspection during which we converse directly with our God, and we're required to approach others for forgiveness, ourselves. No human and no animal serving as rector for our cleansing. Our first aliyah is to honor us as sanctuaries. O Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary. Please rise for the brachot on page 486, in dedication of your own self as a hospitable home for spirit. Rise, dedicated to let God in. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamborach. Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai notein haTorah. We can be seated and we can follow this reading on page 488.
הכפורת. בזאת יבוא אהרון אל הקודש, בפר בן בקר לחטאת ועיל לעולה. כתונת בת קודש ילבש, ומכנסי בת יהיו על בשרו, ובאבנית בד יחגור, ובמצנפת בד יצנוף. בגדי קודש הם, ורחץ במים את בשרו ולבשם. ומאת עדת בני ישראל ייקח 2 שעירי עזים לחטאת, ועיל אחד לעולה. והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו, וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו.
And let's rise again for the bracha to close the aliyah. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai notein haTorah. I'm thinking too, we can be seated. I'm thinking too about the sanctuary of home, the places we live and the ambience we have the capacity to create there. Home might have become a little confining during COVID, space that seemed adequate, suddenly less so when in close quarters with our household members so much of the time, and differently confining for individuals who endured isolation without household companionship. Still, there's been risk every time we've left home, and suddenly the mitzvah of mezuzah feels all the more relevant, acknowledging the threshold between away and home, going out and coming back, jeopardy and security. This aliyah honors what home can be when we take seriously the effect of our living space on our well-being. And it's not just our tidiness or the objects we surround ourselves with. It's also the spiritual atmosphere we create, the quiet or the joy or the kindliness, and certainly the peace we cultivate in our innermost spaces. Please rise, dedicated to the sacred space of home, and asking for blessings upon our households as sanctuaries of healing from the hard knocks of the world, sanctuaries of repose and nurturing. Our brachot, page 486. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah. We can be seated and follow the reading on page 488. This one's marked Levi.
Okay. Let's find the lakach. Second last. Okay. Amen, ולקח את שני השעירים, והעמיד אותם לפני אדוני, פתח אוהל מועד, ונתן אהרון על שני השעירים גורלות, גורל אחד לאדוני, וגורל אחד לעזאזל. והקריב אהרון את השעיר אשר עלה עליו, הגורל לאדוני, ועשהו חטאת, והשעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל לעזאזל, יעמד חי לפני אדוני לכפר עליו, לשלח אותו לעזאזל המדברה. והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו, וכיפר בעדו ועד ביתו, ושחט את פר החטאת אשר לו.
Let's rise again for the bracha to close the aliyah. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. We can be seated. As we enumerate the sacred spaces we create and maintain, the synagogue is an obvious case in point. We've been exiled from our actual, literal, physical sanctuary for a long time, And if we didn't know this truth, we've learned during the pandemic that as much as we love our sacred space on Fraser and 10th Avenue, the Or Shalom Sanctuary transcends our bayit. It lives in the relationships between us. It lives in the compatibility of our innovations with the life of spirit and the traditions we've historically shared as a community. So let's devote this aliyah to honoring members of community here and at home who've contributed to the expansion of our synagogue into the sacred virtual space. Please rise here or at home if you have served as a Zoom shamash. If you have taught a virtual class. If you have led virtual dialogue. If you have led virtual prayer. Don't be shy. Or as my teacher, Reb Sean Zevit, says, don't be shy on your own time. If you have celebrated or helped to celebrate a virtual simcha, attended a virtual shiva, sat with us in online meditation, or sung virtual chant, attended a virtual class, or a dialogue. And there are those who uphold the integrity of our community with a core of love that keeps spirit strong. Please rise here or at home if you're a member of the Gemilut Chesed working group. I think everyone's already standing. If you sit on our membership committee, if you've participated in an act of Gemilut Chesed or virtual hospitality during COVID, cooking or delivering a meal, or delivering other goods, hosting a virtual meal, or writing kind notes, wishing folks well, or mazel tov. Taking a walk with someone who needs accompaniment. Please rise if you've helped to maintain our bayit in our absence. Maybe you have planted in our garden. Maybe you've watered our garden. And rise if you sit on the housing task force, thinking to the future of our physical space. I could go on, but you're all standing. So let's turn to our brachot on page 486. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah. You can be seated and follow this reading on page 490. Let's bring the Torah back to the middle.
אמן. ולקח מלוא המחתה, ככה לאש מעל המזבח מלפני אדוני, ומלוא חופניו כתורת סמים דקה, והביא מבית לפרוכת, ונתן את הקטורת על האש לפני אדוני, וכיסה ענן הקטורת את הכפורת אשר על העדות ולא ימות. ולקח מדם הפר והיזה באצבעו על פני הכפורת קדמה, ולפני הכפורת יזה 7 פעמים מן הדם באצבעו. ושחט את ציר החטאת אשר לעם, והביא את דמו אל מבית לפרוכת, ועשה את דמו כאשר עשה לדם הפר, והיזה אותו על הכפורת לפני הכפורת, וכיפר על הקודש מטומאות בני ישראל ומפשעיהם לכל חטאותם, וכן יעשה לאוהל מועד השוכן איתם בתוך טומאותם. וכל אדם לא יהיה באוהל מועד בבואו לכפר בקודש עד צאתו, וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ובעד כל קהל ישראל.
Let's rise for the brachot to close the aliyah. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. And we can be seated. This aliyah is dedicated to sanctuaries of time. Surely this, here, now, is a sanctuary in time. We've set this day aside, smudged it, activated its holiness, and we sit in the day like a space, a womb-like space, holding us in velvety interiority, protected from the clang and clatter and rush of the world, so that we can re-ensoul. Of course, our tradition offers a cathedral in time every 7 days. And this aliyah is our opportunity to give ourselves the gift, not just of this Shabbaton, but to commit to our weekly Shabbatot in ways that give us a real break. Let's rise with desire to more regularly set work and obligation and practical matters aside for the sake of freedom, for the sake of stillness, for the sake of time to ourselves, time to contemplate the mystery. Nala Amod. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. You can be seated and follow on page 490.
אשר לפני אדוני וכיפר עליו, ולקח מדם הפר ומדם השעיר, ונתן על כוונות המזבח סביב, והיזה עליו מן הדם באצבעו 7 פעמים, וטיהרו וקידשו מטומאות בני ישראל, וכילה מכפר את הקודש ואת אוהל מועד ואת המזבח, והקריב את השעיר החי. ושמח אהרון את שתי ידיו על ראש השעיר החי, והתוודה עליו את כל עוונות בני ישראל ואת כל פשעיהם לכל חטאותם, ונתן אותם על ראש השעיר, ושילח ביד איש איתי המדבר. ונשא השעיר עליו את כל עוונותם אל ארץ גזירה, ושילח את השעיר במדבר. ובא אהרון אל אוהל מועד, ופשט את בגדי הבד אשר לבש בבואו אל הקודש, והניחם שם, ורחץ את בשרו והמים במקום קדוש, ולבש את בגדיו, ויצא ועשה את עולתו ואת עולת העם, וכיפר בעדו ובעד העם.
Let's rise to complete the Aliyah. Just wait a little, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. You can be seated. Toward the end of the morning liturgy on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Machzor includes a quotation from Isaiah, "And I will bring them to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. And my house shall be a house of prayer for all people everywhere." Our penultimate Aliyah is in commitment to sanctuary for all people and peoples. Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi, founder of Jewish Renewal, taught that the most important mitzvah of our time is the mitzvah of connection, not sectarianism or tribalism, but ecumenism. Why? Because the survival of our world depends on it. Let's pray for the right to sacred time and space for all people and peoples. Those who don't have time to sit because they work 3 jobs. Those who don't have control over the comportment of their dwellings or don't have homes. Those whose sacred cultures are being destroyed. Those threatened by violence who cannot turn inward for fear of a lapse in vigilance to external threats. those with troubled minds, those who feel hopelessly hopeless. Please rise, declaring that all our prayers of this Yom Kippur be said in the name of all people. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten HaTorah. The reading is on page 492. We can be seated.
ואת חלב החטאת יקטיר המזבח, והמשלח את השעיר לעזאזל יכבס בגדיו, ורחץ את בשרו במים, ואחרי כן יבוא אל המחנה. ואת פרח החטאת ואת שעיר החטאת אשר הובא את דמם לכפר בקודש יוציא אל מחוץ למחנה. ושרפו באש את אורותם ואת בשרם ואת פרשם, והשורף אותם יכבס בגדיו ורחץ את בשרו במים, ואחרי כן יבוא אל המחנה. והייתה לכם לחוקת עולם בחודש השביעי, בעשור לחודש תענו את נפשותיכם, וכל מלאכה לא תעשו, האזרח והגר הגר בתוככם. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו.
Yasher koach. And let's rise. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten HaTorah. We can be seated. Finally, we're going to rise again for the sanctuary of our living, breathing earth and the deeper reality we encounter in the natural world. Earth in her health offers a connection to spirit that we can't deny. In Dr. Heschel's words, we can never sneer at the stars, mock the dawn, or scoff at the totality of being. Sublime grandeur evokes unhesitating, unflinching awe. Let's rise. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim Venatan lanu et Torato, Baruch ata Adonai, noten Torah. Page 494 to follow along.
Amen. Shabbat, Shabbaton hi lachem, ve'initem et nafshotechem, chukat olam. Vechiper hakohen asher yimshach oto, va'asher yemalei et yado, lechachen tachat aviv, ולבש את בגדי הבד, בגדי הקודש. וכיפר את מקדש הקודש ואת אוהל מועד, ואת המזבח יכפר, ועל הכהנים ועל כל עם הקהל יכפר. והייתה זאת לכם לחוקת עולם, לכפר על בני ישראל מכל חטאותם אחת בשנה, ויעש כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה.
Let's rise. Baruch ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu emet v'natan lanu ata Adonai noten haTorah. Please remain standing for Mishaberach. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless us all for rising in honor of this morning's Torah passages and in honor of Yom Kippurim. Even as we have moved the sanctuary inside and now concentrate on hallowing ourselves and our relationships, let us not forget the origin of our religion, based in the power of place, the sanctity of place, and the importance of place in our relationship with God, whom we call Hamakom, the place, or the one who fills all place. May we be accompanied by Shekhinah, our indwelling God, all the days of our lives. May we and all whom we love be written and sealed this day in the book of life. May our lives be long and healthy and fulfilled. And may our prayers be said in the name of all humankind and for the sake of God's created world. And let us say, Amen. You can be seated. Let's address the Torah. Yai la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. And we're going to take this Torah out into the Kahal. Yasher Koach to our Torah readers, Dahlia Faircloth, Avi Yan, Moti List, Heidi Manis, Harriet Frost, Casey Collins, and to our Gabaim, Heidi Manis and Dahlia Faircloth. I want to invite Gloria Levy forward to offer a prayer for peace.
Feels so good to take the mask off. So I stand here in the shoes of someone I deeply admired, respected and loved, Bat Ami. She stood on this dais every year and gave the prayer for peace. Humble, not fancy, honest, and straight from the heart. Always ready to help another, her natural goodness and love just flowed with such ease. In her quiet, unassuming way, she shone with an uncanny purity of soul, and her memory is a blessing. So peace, a plea for peace through expanded awareness. Peace, shalom, shleimut from the word shalom, fulfillment, ultimate wholeness. People dream of a life of harmony, love, fulfillment for one another. We yearn for peace within ourselves, within our nations, within the world. We sing of peace. We pray for peace. When we're young, shleimut has limited expression. In our young adulthood, we begin to recognize and relate to others like ourselves. And with maturity, we're no longer tribal. More global perspectives enter our consciousness. Life is constantly a shifting of expanding awareness. Kabbalah calls it mo'achin de gadlut, literally a mind of bigness. We strive for mo'achin de gadlut, expanded awareness. In the early days of building the State of Israel, pride and excitement was palpable. Towns, villages, and cities appeared. Culture flourished. I embraced that new state and exulted in joy. My people, my heritage, my history, my language, my customs, and my values. It was an exciting and gratifying time. But I did not see the other. In Akko, Jaffa, Haifa, Lud, and throughout the land, Arabs had lived for centuries. When we walked their streets, I would say to my friend Mustafa, "When was this built?" And he'd always answer jokingly, "Lifnei Sultan Siklaj," before the mythical Sultan of Siklaj. They were rooted here. They belonged. It was their land, too. With expanded consciousness, could I see the other, the one who does not look like me, does not speak like me, perhaps does not even love like me? How do we make room for otherness? Could I acknowledge their oppression, the loss of home, land, autonomy, and freedom? Could I hear their cries and feel their pain? Slowly, with open-hearted probing and exploring, I expanded my consciousness to Teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah. For inspiration and expanded awareness, I turned to Isaiah and I read, quote, "The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the kid goat, and a lion pup and a fattened lamb will walk together. Diversity will reign. The land will know shleimut, the complete wholeness and harmony which encompasses this truly holy world, and peace shall flourish throughout the land." I believe, Ani Mamina, and I recite Shehecheyanu, and this is my tefillah. I pray, may we have the courage and wisdom to fill our purpose on this earth, to constantly expand our insights, awareness, and knowledge of ourselves and others, and learn to live in harmony, love, and fulfillment with diversity. B'shalom. Ken yehi ratzon. May it be so. B'tzedek, tzedakah.
Yeshua, Gloria, L'chini Hiratzon. Amen. 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 Hi, na 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 na. Hi, na 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 na. Please join. Hi, na 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 na. Hi, na 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 na. Hi, na 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 na. Hi, na na na. Hi, na 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 na. Hi, na 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 na. Nala amod lahagbiya sefer sheni. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei v'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Shikach Dave. We can be seated. Our maftir aliyah will be followed by a mishberach for healing. Please rise here or at home to honor this tremendous need in our world. Whether you pray for an individual or a people or a situation in the world that needs divine attention, let's rise one more time. The brachot are on page 486. Baruch et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah. We can be seated, and the maftir reading is on page 496.
ובעשור לחודש השביעי הזה מקרא קודש יהיה לכם והניתם את נפשותיכם כל מלאכה לא תעשו. והקרבתם עולה לאדוני ריח ניחוח פר בן בקר, אחד אייל אחד, כבשים בני שנה 7, תמימים יהיו לכם. ומנחתם סולת בלולב השמן, 3 עשרונים לפר, 2 עשרונים לאייל האחד. עשרון לכבש האחד, לשבעת הכבשים. זריזים אחד חטאת מלבד חטאת הכיפורים ועולת התמיד ומנחתה ונזקיהם.
שכוח רבן. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Let's speak aloud in unison the names of any for whom we pray here and in the sanctuaries at home, or for those situations in the world and on the earth that we pray. And imagine their complete healing. And let's hold this warmth and light in our imaginations. And see if we can partner with God in bringing energy to those people and places. Deep within the home of my soul, now let the healing begin. Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la. Heal our bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds, Shekhinah. Heal our bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds, Shekhinah. Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la, Ana elna refana la. B'chini yiratzon, we can be seated. Yasher koach to Robin Friedlander, our maftir reader. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Let's take the Torah out to the Kahal. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. We can put our machzorim down for today's interpretive Haftarah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim, v'ratza v'divrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah, ובמשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק.
Yah said, "Make a roadway, clear the path, remove the roadblocks from my people's path." Thus says the Transcendent One, dwelling in eternity of holy essence. Yes, I dwell in the highest and holiest, but also in the most broken-hearted and humble, that I may revive those of humble spirit, that I may revive the broken-hearted. I won't fight with you forever. My anger is not eternal, for your spirit would wither, and I am the creator of souls. For your crime of greed I was angry, so I hurt you. And in my anger, I went into hiding. And you went and returned to the path that you desired. I have observed your path, and I would heal you. I would guide you and recompense you and your mourners with comfort. I, who create the words on your lips, say, Shalom, peace to far and near. Thus says Yah, and I will heal you. But those who transgress are like the seas in turmoil. They cannot find rest. Their waters churn up muddy slime, and there is no peace for the violent. Cry, full throat, don't hold back, call out like a shofar, tell my people how they have done wrong, tell the house of Jacob of their misdeeds. Every day this people comes asking for me, begging to know my path, just as if they were a fine and just society that had not abandoned the decrees of the source of justice. They like to hear about right judgment and getting close to God. They call out, look how nice we're fasting. Don't you see we're afflicting our souls? Don't you know? Well, on your fast days you folk are more concerned about the bottom line and how to realize your profit. Your fast is violence and disruption. You strike out with close fists. You are not making this day a fast day, a day to make your voices heard on high. Like this you treat the day I set aside for fasting, a day for challenging your souls. There you go, getting out your sackcloth and ashes. You call all this fasting, a day demanded by the Eternal. No, the day I chose for fasting goes like this. You crack open the chains of oppression. You loosen up the straps of the harness. You bust open the jail doors, so the imprisoned may go free. You break open every restraint. You share your food with the hungry. You shelter the homeless in your houses. If you see people without clothes, you clothe them. When you see your flesh and blood, you do not look away. If you do this, your light will shine out like the dawn, and quickly healing will flourish. Justice will go before you always, and divine glory will follow close behind. Then, when you call out, the Eternal will answer, "Here I am." When you throw out the yoke of oppression and the gossip and those pointing fingers, when your soul goes out to the hungry, when you seek to help the afflicted, then your light will shine through the dark, and night will be as bright as noon. In this way, let the Eternal lead you always, watering the parched places of your soul, restoring your bones to their vigor. You will be like a watered garden, like a wellspring that never dies. You will restore the ruined places of the planet. You will uphold the foundation of every age. They will call you the ones who repair the breach, the ones who put us back on a path to home. Bruchat ya Eloheinu lev haolam, asher sama lav eleinu, veshomat kol libeinu, rachami aleinu, veishama kol dmamadaka. Bruchat ya Eloheinu simchat haolam, asher meoreret ruchenu lashir shir chadash. Blessed are you, Yah, our God, heart of the universe, who attends to us and hears the voice of our hearts. Have compassion on us and make audible the still small voice. Blessed are you, Yah, our God, joy of the universe, who awakens our spirit that we may sing a new song.
Amen. Yashikoach Avril Orlaf. And a special thanks to Chaim Yanis, who set this powerful passage from Isaiah to trope and who mentored our Haftarot both today and on Rosh Hashanah. Let's bring the Torahs back and rise as they return to the Aron Kodesh, page 514 at the bottom. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba betocheha meyushar deracheha darchei noam lechol netivoteha Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu, We can be seated. Our teacher this morning is Sally Thorne.
Yom Kippur is not supposed to be an easy day. Certainly, we've got the inconvenience of fasting, giving up some of the habitual patterns and comforts that make up our usual daily lives. But far more importantly and profoundly, we're asked again and again throughout the services to confront some of the deep spiritual and philosophical questions we usually would rather avoid. Not only do we recite them together in community, but we're also expected to confront them within our own selves, to take ourselves on a personal journey of atonement, kapara, and redemption, tshuva.
We've just read from Vayikra a set of detailed instructions to Moshe and Aharon regarding the procedure for the high priest's service through which they might achieve atonement for themselves, their family, and the people Israel. The reason all of this was needed began with a totally misguided but well-intended human action. The community was holding a service for the specific purpose of consecrating the tabernacle after the revelation that God would forgive the people Israel for the unfortunate incident with the golden calf. And in the ecstasy of that moment, Aharon's sons, Nadab and Abihu, suddenly approached the altar with strange fire, profane fire, instead of the prescribed ritual flame. And in that state of spiritual high, they got too close to the Holy of Holies without the proper preparation, which caused their instantaneous death as they were taken up and consumed in that holy fire. So to allow for the altar to be cleansed from the impurities and transgressions of the Israelites, God then spoke through Moses, giving that guidance to Aaron in the form of an intricately complicated procedure manual for how to make the holy place safe again. He was to wash his body in a particular way, put on holy garments, bring forward several sacrificial animals, and a precise sequence of actions outlined in these passages. We learn that he had to sprinkle the blood of a young bull on various parts of the high altar, and then point a finger dipped in that blood in several different directions, seven times, and only then cast lots between the two young goats as to which would be ritually slaughtered as a sin offering to God and which would be set free in the wilderness as the scapegoat, having received upon its head the confessions of the community. It's a visually dramatic and emotionally troubling story that must have been terrifying to those who received it. Well, Torah has a way of bringing us back to our senses when there are lessons we just don't get, jolting us into attention or giving us a smack in the side of the head when we need strong reminders to self-correct. And it's often the most inconvenient stories, the truly messy ones, that have the most to tell us if we actually allow ourselves to dig down into them and pay attention. Just think, for example, of the story all Jews recite every year at Passover, whether or not they practice their religion at any other time of year. All 10 of those nasty plagues were needed to prod those Israelites into realizing that the balance of the universe was not as it should be, and that their very survival would depend upon getting past their complacency and taking some collective action. And this one too, this very peculiar story we've just read is the one that is told year after year on the very day that most Jews who are not shul goers the rest of the year will actually turn up for services. So it has to be an important one. But why? And what is it about this Torah portion that's calling on us to wake up and pay attention? According to one source I read, Rabbi Naftali Silverberg of the Rohr Jewish Learning Center in New York, one way of understanding this story is the idea that while spiritual highs may be wonderful, the reason we were created was for something far more important, to infuse our physical environment with godliness through the seemingly mundane acts of mitzvot. So perhaps this most complicated and confusing of annual learnings is that these days we call the days of awe, yirah, are really supposed to be more about learning to take action, lifol. Our tradition actually has quite a lot to say about action. We cherish those 613 mitzvot, the acts we're supposed to do and the acts we're not supposed to do, as central to our heritage. We understand them as coming from the holy source through Moses, contained like secret codes within the multitude of strange stories that we recite throughout the year. And many of them are confusing and a real stretch to interpret. While they may have made some sense in an earlier time, the point they're driving at is pretty obscure for us now. So we seek out our wise teachers and rabbis to help us reflect in a more scholarly way on where they came from and why, and help us see whether they might actually have any meaning for us in our lives right now, today. And when we undertake that form of study, we are using our free will to take on these marvelous and peculiar points of guidance correctly, so that the lives we live will be more safe and responsible, and in keeping with the larger plan God supposedly has for us. They become our guidance for how we're to treat other human beings, and the land and the natural world around us. Well, for the past 18 months, we have been individually and collectively preoccupied by the COVID-19 pandemic. In our era, we no longer have Moses as a direct line for God's guidance for us, so we look for wisdom to the high priestess of a provincial health officer. And she, in turn, surrounds herself with wise elders in matters of public health, scientific advancement, and public policy, drawing on them to help her explain for us what correct action entails in these new and confusing conditions. And the guidance that this high priest has consistently offered has been holy advice. Liot nechmad, liot ragua, liot batuach, be kind, be calm, be safe. And to help us know how to achieve those three, she created dozens upon dozens of new mitzvot to try and weave into our own ways of living. First, we were commanded to go into our own private dwellings and stay quiet. And in preparation for our extended isolation, we were to ensure that our families and neighbors were well stocked with essentials, which in our collective human foolishness, you will recall, we interpreted as toilet paper. We practiced and tried to integrate into our lives new ways of hand washing and sanitizing our services. We had prohibitions against touching our face or licking our fingers. And we learned how to reconfigure the spaces between us, expressing love by staying distant from our loved ones. An impressive list of new thou shalts and shalt nots that she would pronounce from her high place at 3 p.m. every afternoon. And as the pandemic unfolded, we had to learn new ones, formalizing bubbles of those we were allowed to touch and see, and then learning to mask and contact trace, and postponing our life events. And we clung to our trust in that high priestess as vaccines started to become available, and a new set of tyrants and false prophets appeared, trying to capitalize on the chaos to gain power or confuse our thinking for other nefarious purposes. This time truly has been characterized by an endless and evolving set of new mitzvot being handed down to us and trying to work out how we were supposed to continue being a meaningful spiritual community when so many of our beloved practices and connections were now prohibited by virtue of being deemed dangerous to the well-being of our members. As the rapid-fire changes and commandments made it necessary to come to terms with a collective response, the board and the rabbi decided to create a group that had no power or authority on its own, but could serve as a wise sounding board for the difficult decisions that would have to be made on behalf of all of us. I had the great privilege to be invited to chair Or Shalom's COVID-19 Advisory Committee, most probably because I looked most like Bonnie Henry. And we formed a group designed to reflect the diversity of perspectives that every good Jewish decision requires. We were a nurse, a family physician, a palliative care pediatrician, an epidemiologist, a psychiatrist, a virologist, an anthropologist, and a rabbinic educator. And I have so appreciated your individual and collective wisdom, Julie Martz, Hal Seiden, Malcolm Steinberg, Ross Andelman, Mel Krasden, K.M. Perry, and Yoni Gordis. And when we met over the course of these past 18 months, always with Reb Hannah and board co-chair Martin Gottfried listening intently, our process was something like a sort of COVID yeshiva group, trying to puzzle over the sacred text of the provincial health orders that changed with the evolving scientific evidence. And by listening to the wisdom that came through our very different angles of vision, we tried to figure out what might constitute right action in terms of the human and spiritual and relational experiences and practices that are the essence of our holy community. What we realized is that the kind of guidance that might have come in a direct line from God in Moses' time is ours to discern in the modern world. and that our tradition provides us with a lot of guidance to try and come to that shared perspective on what really matters. We asked ourselves questions like, what does our tradition tell us about how to preserve what we know is essential to Jewish community integrity under circumstances when our usual practices are inaccessible to us? And how do we model for our community the kind of social responsibility and pandemic management that will guide and inform our members in their individual practices and choices? And what are we really meant to be learning from all of this? When we're shaken from our habitual patterns into a new kind of conscious awareness, the Torah tells us that this kind of urgent self-confrontation is always happening for a reason. And like all of you, I'm sure, we in the COVID committee came to appreciate that we can come out the other side of this pandemic damaged as a community, weakened, bitter, fearful, xenophobic, or alternatively, we also have a chance of coming out the other side with a sense of being renewed in our understanding of why we were created, to enact the mitzvot that will truly infuse our world, both our human world and our physical environment, with the goodness that we might call godliness. It's no accident that the pandemic time has raised up certain structural inequities and attitudinal barriers that have been deeply embedded in the everyday world we inhabit, and that these have come crashing into widespread public consciousness over this past year. We've had to face the shocking truth that those of privilege in our society, and that means most of us here today, if not all, have played a role, regardless of it being unintentional or unknowingly, in sustaining the racism and inequity and injustice that's a core foundation of the Canadian society in which we live, work, and play. And with the truly terrifying extreme heat and smoke we all lived through this past summer, we've had to face up to the horrifying fact that climate change really is upon us, and that we've collectively allowed ourselves to deny its importance for too long. In the very moment that this pandemic was calling upon us to reflect on who we were and what was important and what we were meant to be learning, the unmarked graves of Indigenous children and the out-of-control BC wildfires called out to us with a fury and demanded that we pay attention. Looping back to the Torah portion we just read and considering it in the context of the collective pandemic experience, I think there really are some profound messages for our Or Shalom community. Like Aharon's sons, perhaps we have sometimes allowed ourselves to get a bit too close to the flame of ecstatic spiritual experience. We adore being tightly packed together into a crowded space, linking arms and swaying together in response to our beloved melodies and belting out our favorite nigunim in gorgeous multiple layers of harmony. We're a community that really does know how to create spiritual highs. The frenzy of Ne'ilah, the conclusion of this day's service, something that many of us look forward to every year, perhaps being a prime example. But the Torah portion and the pandemic together seem to be reminding us that these spiritual highs we all seek out are potentially dangerous, especially if they gradually become our primary reason for being together and have not been fully translated into right action, into doing what we can as a Jewish spiritual community to make the world a better place. And so in the wonderful synchronicity that such changes in collective consciousness tend to signify, it makes perfect sense that over these past months, many members of Or Shalom have been exploring how our community can expand our traditional vision of ourselves. What can we do beyond the old ways of being in close physical proximity to still serve as a spiritual home where we can come together to feed our Jewish souls? Our incredibly creative members have fashioned newer and safer ways to do music, poetry, prayer, and study together, ways that turn out to be inclusive of all of us, regardless of our finances or geography. And I sincerely hope that many of these new practices will continue. And our Tikkun Olam committee has been exploring what a uniquely Or Shalom voice might possibly contribute to those larger societal conversations about race-based hatred and the climate emergency, trying to work out what actions can and should be the proper targets and strategies to engage our distinctive Or Shalom sensibility. It seems we're learning to move beyond the idol worship of our own self-absorption and toward reintegrating our sense of a God concept that's so much larger than ourselves and our capacity to intellectualize it. We're learning from our Indigenous brothers and sisters that this concept must include all our relations, not only the humans we know and identify with, not just the members of our own tribe, but all of them, and all of the creatures that crawl on the earth, and swim in the sea, and fly in the air, and our relations, the trees and plants without which we could not survive, and the mineral ones who are also our relations. If we recalibrate our way of being with all of these, we know we can come closer to God in the largest sense that anyone can imagine a God. Not the God character of Moses' time who sits on a mountain fluctuating between wrath and mercy to point us in a particular spiritual path, but much more than what our minds can fully grasp, of a source, an intention, a master plan, a cosmologic trigger, an idea and a wisdom so large and expansive that we cannot know it except through the knowledge that good exists in this world, despite how irrational that idea might sometimes seem. Personally, I don't think I can envision return to normal as the end point of all of this. Being an academic in my day job, I've had a good giggle every year when we come to the page in the Musaf where we ask for forgiveness for the sin of useless conferences. And if that one speaks to you, you'll find it on page 581. But perhaps it isn't just meant to be funny, and the wise elders of our tradition actually had a point. I can no longer imagine myself indulging in the sin and carbon footprint of the level of international travel that my former way of doing my academic work entailed. This pandemic's taught us so many more ways to come together that are less selfish and more protective of our Mother Earth. And I suspect that each of you individually, as you have and will flip through the collection of things that the Musaf offers about which to seek forgiveness, have found aspects that you're thinking about differently this year than you have ever before. Places where you too may have strayed a bit close to that flame of unknowing self-indulgence. So today, as we begin to envision a post-pandemic world, we mourn the losses of very dear members of our community and of the many people this plague took from us over this past year. We hear today 1 out of every 500 Americans. I know my family's been deeply affected, and collectively we are acutely feeling the absence of our beloved Binky Siegel in particular. For so many of us, the echoes of her quiet voice reciting a heartfelt peace prayer will always ring in our ears during these high holiday services. So to honor what we've lost and to do justice to the wake-up call it has signified, today we're called to tshuva, to turn around, to begin to head in a right direction. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kakeken. Help us return to you, help us return and renew. Let's never lose our faith that people can change for the better. This is a day of forcing us to pay attention, to translate the yearnings of our souls into the capacity for new personal and collective action. May we allow the ancient wisdom to guide us into a new post-pandemic world of caring and hope and even optimism for each of us, for our community, for all people, and the planet. Gamar Chativa Tova.
Gamar Chatima Tova to you, Sally, and Yasher Koach, and thank you. Musaf begins with a Chatzi Kaddish, followed directly by a silent Amidah. We have not had any time to ourselves yet today, so it's good that it's coming. page 518 with the Amidah on 520. At the top of 520, you'll see directions for an English translation and alternative reflections if you prefer. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah B'yama Dvar Chirutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon U'v'yomechon U'v'chayei Decho Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman Karim Ve'imeru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam V'yamei Amaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shmei Dekudsha Berichu Le'ela Le'ela Min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alma ve'imeru Amen. Hineni ha'aniya mima'as. Here I am, so lacking and still in this position of leadership. Ya la 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 la. 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 Ya 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 la 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 la. La ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Let's rise and turn to page 534. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem Lema'an Shemo B'yahava Mesod Chachamim Unevonim Umilemed Da'at Mevinim Evtechafi bitfila uvetachanyonim lechalot ulechaneim lifnei melech malei rachamim mochel v'soleach la'avonim zachreinu lechaim melech chafetz b'chaim v'chatveinu b'sefer hachaim lemancha Elohim chaim melech ozer u'moshia u'magen baruch atah Adonai magen Avraham ufoked Sarah Ata gibor leolam Adonai mechaye metim ata rav lahoshia mechalkel chaim bechesed mechaye metim berachamim rabim somech noflim verofe cholim umatir asurim mekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha bal gevurot umido melach melech meimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua Michamocha av harachamim Zocher Yetzurav, Zocher Yetzurav, Lechaim Berachamim, V'ne'eman Ata Lechayot Metim, Baruch Ata Adonai, Mechayei HaMetim. Uvechein lecha ta'ale kedusha, ki ata Eloheinu melech mochel v'soleach. Unetane tokef kedushat hayom, ki hu nora ve'ayom. Uvotina se malchutecha, v'yikon b'chesed kisecha, v'tesheva ala be'emet, emet, ki atahu dayan, umochiach v'yodea va'ed, v'chotei v'chotei, v'sofer umoneh, v'tizkor kol hanishkachot, v'tiftach et sefer hazichronot, umamale yikarei, v'chotam yad kol adam bo. V'shofar gadol yitaka, uvekol mamadaka yishama, umalachim yechafezim, v'chil v'ra'ada yochezim, v'yomru hinei yom hadin. O Holy One of blessing, you remember what we would rather forget, reviewing the pages in the books of our lives, pages we have written with our own words and deeds. All that lives passes before you today. You will count and judge every living being, determining the fate of everything in creation. How many souls will return to you this year? How many souls will be born into the world? Who will live and who will die? Whose life will be long and whose cut short? Who will perish by fire and who by water? Who in wilds of war and who in wilds of nature? Who will be the victim of hatred? Who will become homeless or hungry or a victim of neglect? Who will suffer incurable illness? And who will die of curable illness or preventable illness? Who will be at ease with themselves? And who will be conflicted by anxiety? Who will be impoverished this year and who will be enriched? Who among us will attain fulfillment and who will not? Who will be brought low and who will be raised up? Berosh Hashana Yikatevun, Uveyom Tzom Kippur Yechatemu. 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 וכמה יעבורון, וכמה ייבראון, מי יחיה ומי ימות, מי בקיצור ומי לא בקיצור. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. מי באש ומי במים, מי בחרב ומי בחיה, מי ברעב ומי בצמא, מי ברש ומי במגפה, מי בחניקה ומי בסקילה. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. מי ינוח ומי ינוע, מי ישקיט ומי יטורף, מי ישלב ומי יתייסר, מי יעני ומי יעשיר, ומי יושפל ומי ירום. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. 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 We want to believe that all is not determined by fate, and that our imprint upon the world matters. We believe that repentance, prayer, and good deeds have the power to change the character of our lives. And so we rededicate ourselves here, today, right now, just asking for a clean slate and creating one. We are but a broken shard, withering grass, a shriveled flower, a passing shadow, a fading cloud, a fleeting breeze, scattered dust. We are but a vanishing dream, dear God. But your time has no end. The extent of your glory cannot be fathomed, and we do not understand your mystery. Treat us kindly, dear one, for your own sake. Give us another chance to prove that we can be the glory of your name. Page 538. Uteshuva, utefila, utzedaka, ma'avirim et roa hagezera. Adam yesodo mi'afar v'sofo le'afar, v'yatahu melech el chai v'kayam. The Aron Kodesh is closed, and we remain standing for the Kedusha, beginning at the bottom of page 538. עשה למען שמך, וקדש את שמך על מקדישי שמך, בעבור כבוד שמך, הנערץ והנקדש, כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, דרי מעלה עם דרי מטה, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו. כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו, איה מקום כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומו הוא יפן ורחמים, יחון עם יחד עם שמו, עם יחד עם שמו, ערב הבוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ורחמיו שנית שנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ובדברי קדשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה. We are seated. We have another music stand. Let's turn to page 5 in our supplements via Etayun. Please model Wendy's responses and our singing together. Via Etayun kol avdecha v'yitnu lecha keter melucha v'yivarechu shem kevodecha
v'yitnu lecha keter melucha
v'yagidu ba אם סיכתך ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה. יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 ויכירו כוח מלכותך
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
can't do it. וילמדו תוהים בינה
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
ומללו את גבורתך
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 וסלדו וחילה פניך
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
ועטרוך נזר תפארה
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
ויפתחו ההרים בינה
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 וישמרו רחוקים ויבואו
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה
ויתנו לך כתר מלוכה.
יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 Let's take a little stretch. And turn to page 604. At dawn, on Yom Kippur, the priests and Levites and Israelites gathered in 3 circles around the high priest, who bathed and dressed in his 8 priestly garments, veiled by a curtain. After arranging a sacrificial sheep on the altar, offering incense and lighting the lamp, he immersed again and redressed, setting aside his gold vestments for white linen. They attached a cord to his leg, lest he would need to be rescued. He stretched his hands over the bull and confessed his personal sins and those of his household, holding nothing back. And thus he said,
An Hashem aviti, pashati, chatati lefanecha, ani ubeiti. An Hashem kaperna leavanot v'lapshaim, ולחטאים שעוויתי ושפשעתי ושחטאתי לפניך, אני וביתי, ככתוב בתורת משה עבדך. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני Adonai.
Please rise as the ark is opened, prepared to bow all the way to the ground.
והכהנים והעם עומדים בעזרה, כשהיו שומעים את השם הנכבד והנורא, מפורש יוצא מפי כהן גדול, בקדושה ובטהרה. היו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים ורוחמים על פניהם ואומרים
Baruch Shekevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. The Aron Kodesh is closed, and we are seated, page 606. When the priests and all the people in the court heard God's name enunciated in purity, they fell to the ground, saying, "Praised is the name of the one whose glorious sovereignty will last forever." And the high priest completed their verse, saying, "You shall be cleansed." 2 identical goats were made ready, and the priest cast lots, assigning one goat to heaven, the other to the wilderness. Then he turned to the sacrificial bull to confess the sins of his tribe. And the high priest and the congregation bowed to the ground and said,
An Hashem aviti pashati chatati lefanecha ani ubeiti uvnei Aharon am kedoshecha. An Hashem kaperna leavanot ולפשעים ולחטאים שעוויתי ושפשעתי ושחטאתי לפניך, אני וביתי ובני אהרון עם קדושך, ככתוב בתורת משה עבדך, שביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני.
Let's rise as the Aron Kodesh is open and prepare to bow all the way to the ground.
והכהנים והעם עומדים בעזרה, כשהיו שומעים את השם הנכבד והנורא, מפורש יוצא מפי כהן גדול, בקדושה ובטהרה. היו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים ורוחמים על פניהם
Baruch Kevoto Leolam Va'ed. The Aron Kodesh is closed and we can be seated. All the people in the temple court heard the enunciation of the holy name, and the high priest prolonged his utterance as they recited, Baruch Shem Kavod, blessed is the name of the one. And then he completed their verse, saying, Titharu, you shall be cleansed. The high priest slaughtered the bull, collecting some of its blood in a bowl. He entered the Holy of Holies, lighting incense, so that smoke filled the space to mediate the directness of his contact with the divine. Then, dipping his fingers, he sprinkled blood on the cover of the ark containing the tablets of the law. And thus he counted.
Achat,
Achat,
achat v'achat,
Achat v'Achat,
achat u'shtayim,
Achat u'shtayim,
achat v'shalosh,
Achat v'shalosh,
achat v'arba,
Achat v'arba,
achat v'chamesh,
Achat v'chamesh,
achat v'chshesh, achat v'sheva.
He emerged and sprinkled blood. He emerged and sprinkled blood on the embroidered curtain, then hurried to repeat the ritual, sprinkling the blood of the goat that had been consecrated a purification offering for Adonai. Now, mixing the blood of the goat and bull, he purified the golden altar. He confessed the sins of the nation on the head of the live goat consecrated for the wilderness. And the high priest and the congregation bowed to the ground and said,
An Hashem avu pashu chatu lefanecha amcha beit Yisrael. An Hashem kaper na leavanot v'lapshayim v'lachataim שאבו ושפשו ושחטו לפניך עמך בית ישראל ככתוב בתורת משה עבדך שביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני Adonai.
Our Aron Kodesh is opened, and we rise, prepared to bow all the way to the ground.
והכהנים והעם עומדים בזרה כשהיו שומעים את השם הנכבד והנורא מפורש יוצא מפי כהן גדול בקדושה ובטהרה היו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים ונותנים אחריהם ואומרים
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. We can be seated. And the high priest intentionally prolonged his utterance of the holy name And when the people in the temple court heard God's name enunciated so explicitly, they fell to the ground, saying, "Praised is the name of the one whose glorious sovereignty will last forever." And the Kohen Gadol completed their verse, saying, "You shall be cleansed." And God's love was aroused, and God forgave Israel. The Zohar says that when the high priest's prayers were complete, the cherubs on the Ark of the Covenant opened their wings and began to sing. The goat for the wilderness was set forth. The high priest read portions of the Torah. He completed the purification offering and the holiday offering. He removed his white vestments and buried them forever. He removed his white vestments, burying them forever, and bathing and redressing in his daily vestments of gold and ornament, so as to offer the daily sacrifice and light the daily incense and candles. Finally, he changed into his personal clothing and was accompanied home by an exultant crowd. The Zohar says that if the priest was worthy, there was rejoicing on high, and below, the chamber of holiness began to shimmer, illuminated by the flow of God's acceptance, streaming from hills of pure balsam. The priest backed out of the chamber, and oh, how glorious was his appearance when he came forth safe from the Holy of Holies, like the canopy of the heaven, like the light of angels, like tzitzit on the corner of our garments, like a rainbow amidst clouds, like a rose in a garden, like a crown on the forehead, like the face of a bridegroom, like the morning star, like golden bells on the hem of a robe, like a chamber hung with blue and purple tapestries, like the sight of sunlight shining upon the earth. And this was the prayer of the Kohen Gadol when he emerged from the Kodesh HaKodashim on Yom Kippurim. May it be your will, Adonai, our God, and God of our ancestors, to grant us
a year of abundance,
a year of blessing,
a year of good fortune,
a year of bountiful harvest,
a year of prosperity and success,
a year of assembly in your holy places,
a year of song,
a year of fulfilling life,
a year of dew and rain and sun,
a year of sweet fruit at harvest,
a year of atonement and forgiveness for all our sins,
a year in which our bread and water are blessed,
a year of rest,
a year of consolation,
a year of abundant joy,
a year of delight,
a year in which the fruit of our womb and of our earth are blessed,
a year in which our going and coming are blessed,
a year in which our community achieves salvation,
a year in which your mercy descends upon us,
a year of peace and tranquility,
a year in which we go up in joy to your land, a year in which your people Israel will not require support from one another or from other people, the work of their hands being fully blessed. Yalai la la la, yalai la la la, yalai la la la, yalai la yalai la, yalai la la la, yalai la la la, yalai la la la, yalai la yalai la, yalai la la la, yalai la yalai la, yalai la la la, yalai la la la, yalai la la. La la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, la 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 la. And having recalled the happy resolution of Yom Kippur in ancient days, we raise our own voices in our own time, asking for compassion. Please rise, Shema Kolenu, page 572. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachum aleinu, v'kabel brachamim ratzon et tefilateinu. Hashivenu Adonai elecha, v'nashuva, v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha, v'nashuva, v'nashuva. Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu kekedem, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. Help us return to you. Help us return and renew. Help us return to you. Help us return and renew. Al tashlichenu milfanecha, veruach kadshecha al tikach mimenu. Al tashlichenu le'ed zikna, kichlot kochenu al ta'azvenu. Al ta'azvenu Adonai Eloheinu, al tirchak mimenu. Let's be seated. And let's read in the English at the bottom of page 573. Our God and God of our ancestors, forsake us not, shame us not, break not your covenant with us. Bring us nearer to your Torah, teach us your commandments, show us your ways. Soften your hardened hearts so that we may love and returning to you wholeheartedly, as the psalmist sang. For your own sake, Lord, pardon my sin, though it is great. Page 574. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, slach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu. Ki anu amecha v'yata Eloheinu, anu vanecha v'yata avinu, anu avdecha v'yata adonenu, anu kehalecha v'yata chelkenu, anu nachlatecha v'yata goralenu, anu tzonecha v'yata ro'enu, anu charmecha v'yata notrenu, anu ve'ulatecha v'yata yotrenu, Anu rayatecha v'yata dodenu. Anu segulatecha v'yata kerovenu. Anu amecha v'yata malkeinu. Anu mamirecha v'yata mamirenu. In the English at the bottom of page 575. We are insolent, but you are gracious and compassionate. We are obstinate, but you are patient. We excel at sin, but you excel at mercy. Our days are a passing shadow, while you are eternal, your years without end. Page 577. Hear our prayer. Do not ignore our pleas. We are neither so insolent nor so obstinate as to claim that we are righteous without sin, for we have surely sinned. Please rise. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ashamnu, Baganu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Hirshanu, Zahadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Shaker. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya atznu kizavnu, latznu, maradnu, niyatznu, sararnu, avinu, pashanu, sararnu, kishinu, oref. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Rashanu, shichatnu, tiavnu, tatinu, tiavnu. We abuse, we betray, we are cruel, we destroy, we embitter, we falsify, we gossip, we hate, we insult, we jeer, we kill, we lie, we mock, we neglect, we oppress, we pervert, we quarrel, we rebel, we steal, we transgress, we are unkind, we are violent, we are wicked, we are xenophobic, we yield to evil, we are zealots for bad causes. Page 401. Right to the Al-Khaitz. Al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha be'imutz lev, ve'al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha bevitui svatayim, 406. Al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha begalui uvasater, ve'al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha bedibur peh. Al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha behar hor halev, ve'al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha bevidui peh. Al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha bezadon uvishkaga, ve'al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha bechilu Hashem. Al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha betipshut peh, ve'al-Khait shechatanu lefanecha v'yodim u'velo yodim. Ve'al kulam Eloha tzelichot, selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu. ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכפת שוחד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בלשון הרע, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך במלאך ובמשתה, במאכל ובמשתה, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנטיעת גרון, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשיקור עין, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעזות מצח, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בפלילות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בקשיות עורף, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברכילות, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתימהון לבב. ויעל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו כפר לנו. We remain standing for some al-khaits for our destruction of earth. For all these, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement, for she nourishes us. And that which we put into the ground, she returns to us. For the sin of taking from creation's beauty more than we give, and for the sin of destroying, for the furtherance of our greed, for the sin of taking from her what we cannot use, and for the sin of destroying earth's music, creating confusion, for the sin of wrecking her appearance and being blind to her beauty, for the sin of polluting her fragrance, for the sin of forgetting who we are in the face of her splendor, and for the sin of abusing our power as stewards of the earth. V'yal kulam Eloha selichot, selach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu. We can be seated, page 584. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael uvitfilatam, hashev et Avodah lidvir beitecha, uvitfilatam ba'ahava tekabel b'ratzon, utihi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Bottom of page 586. Uvechol hachayim yoducha selah, v'yahalelu et shimcha be'emet, ha'el yeshuatenu ve'ezratenu selah. Baruch ata Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulachana'eh lehodot. Page 590. The Aron Kodesh is opened, and we rise, answering Amen. Today you strengthen us. Amen. Today you bless us. Amen. Today you exalt us. Amen. Today you seek our happiness. Amen. Today you inscribe us for a happy life. Amen. Today you accept with love our prayer. Amen. Today you hear our cry. Amen. Today you sustain us with the power of your justice. Amen. Today you pardon and forgive all our sins. Amen. We can be seated, I think. B'sefer Chaim beracha v'shalom u'farnasa tova nizacher v'nika Nate lefanecha va'anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael l'chaim tovim u'leshalom. I want to say Yasher Koach to everyone and express deep gratitude to those who participated in leadership of our worship this morning, to Ferret Welsh for Pesukei Zimra, Reb Laura Duhan Kaplan and Charles Kaplan for leading our davening of Shachrit, our Torah readers, Dahlia Faircloth, Avi Yan, Moti Liss, Heidi Mann, Harriet Frost, Casey Collins, Robin Friedlander, and for the Haftarah, Avril Orloff, our Gabaim, Dahlia and Heidi. Wendy Rubin for davening the Avodah and contributing to our Musaf. Gloria Levy for our peace prayer. And Sally Thorne for our deeply inspiring Dvar Torah. Thank you, Dave Kaufman and Martin Gottfried on tech. Always Tracy Fagg and Matthew Ginden, not only for minding our few children, for the beautiful teaching in preparation for our high and holy days. The angel who works logistical magic in all our services and creates the beautiful ambiance is Mary Adlersberg. And we thank Fran Rich for heading the team that transported everything from the Bayit and set up this space, and for arranging most of the flowers. Please go to the Or Shalom homepage to empty your pockets still further into our Tzedakah fund. And we will be back for chant, Yizkor, and Ne'ilah at 5:45. And you shall come to my holy mountain, and you shall come to my house of prayer. My house shall be a house of prayer for all peoples. My house shall be a house of prayer for all peoples. Let's rise, page 594. Yitgadal v'yitkadosh shemei Rabbah be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei decho beit Yisrael v'hagala v'zman kariv ve'imeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach Leolam Yalmei Amaya Yitbarach Yitbarach Ve'yishtabach Ve'yipa'ar Ve'yitramam Ve'yitnaseh Ve'yitadar Ve'yitalev Yitalal Shmidekude Shabrichu Le'ela Le'ela Min kol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imeru amen. Tekabel tzilod hon uvod hon decho beit Yisrael kadam ava handi vishmaya ve'imeru amen. Yesh lama rabba min shemaya chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yishmael Ve'yalko Yoshvei Tevel Ve'imeru. Amen. Yom Kippur is a solemn day, but not a sad day. I hope you have had some of your burdens lifted and that you have a lovely afternoon. Good Yom Tov.